So let's choose that right now. Let's just close our eyes for a moment and imagine where the heart is in our body and choose to see it opening, a door opening from our heart out into the world, and what flows freely through us is that light of love that is without limit, and we see it easily spreading forth to the people in this room, to the people watching with us online, to the people around our country and all the way across the world. People, now put a little love in your heart and send it out where it can do some good. We see the good, we desire good, we are willing to do the good, for we are a loving people, and so it is. Amen. And will you help me speak our invocation? The words are up here on the screen. Together. There's only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, the all-loving goodness of God. Thank you. You may be seated.
Constant and true, I rest in you. Steady, steady is your love, and here in your stillness, my heart you fill it. Steady, steady is your love. In my storm you are the center calm. In my night, fix eternal star, constant and true. My home is you. Steady, steady is your love. Steady is your love. Constant and true, I rest in you. I rest in you. Steady, steady, steady is your love. Here in your stillness, here in your stillness, my heart you fill it. Steady, steady is your love. In my storm, and in my storm you are the center calm. In my night, fix eternal star, constant and true. My home is you. My home is you. Steady, steady is your
Steady, steady, steady. How many of you put a tree on that wall over there? Good job, thank you. How many of you were at the class this week? Okay. So we're going to combine what you see over there on the wall and what we talked about in class this week as a way to apply what we're learning in everyday life. And if you weren't here, you didn't hear last week, as thank you, Michael and Mary Beth Spear, who stood in for me. I was actually just had been so busy working on some other things the week before that I knew I wasn't going to be ready with the message, so thank you for that. And I was literally working on the class last Sunday morning. But they were here. They mentioned our stand of trees, our forest of dreams that we've created. And I'm always interested in turning things like that, those inspiring ideas, into practical application, as you know. Positive, practical application of our spirituality. And when I thought about what was going on this week that we could probably all relate to, where it would help for us to have a dream, it would help for us to have spiritual tools that would help us move through it. Probably the biggest thing that most of us are aware of is that we went to war with Iran. Anybody hear about that? Anyone? Anyone? Okay. Well, as soon as I say those words, there could be some of you here, some of you watching online, went, or you don't want to hear about that. This is not your thing. Stay far, far away from a conversation around that. So I'm going to give you something else to listen to. I want you, if it just really sinks your boat, to hear a conversation that mentions the word war, and we're in it. I want you to think about any time you've ever been in conflict with anybody. Now, don't tell me you haven't done that, okay? So it's your job to metaphysically interpret war today with personal conflict. Are you willing to do that? Okay, thank you. So I'm going to choose 5 trees off that wall today to help us find ways to address what we might experience when we've heard that our country has gone to war, or whenever we are in some kind of conflict with someone in our lives. And we're also going to look at some spiritual tools that we talked about this past week and just get a chance to learn them more deeply. And I want to start with the first tree up here on the screen. If you notice, if you go over there and take a look today, you'll notice that every trunk has an idea on it. And that idea you might call the dream. It might be the ideal that the artist, the contributor, felt was important to them. It mattered. It was something that they wanted to stand for in life. And this particular tree stands for security. That's something that many of us want when we're in conflict. Yes? Would you say that? So the branches above the trunk are all kinds of ways that we can describe security, how we might get there, what it will look like, what it will feel like, how it will express. So on this particular tree, security looks like safe playgrounds, clean water, food, community, schools, books, freedom, hope, security, love. All good ideas, right? When we experience security, that's where we want to experience it, or how we want to experience it. Now, when we're at war, it's very common for us to want security. Very common. And when you're in the middle of the war and there's bombs going off around you, probably the most common thing that you want security around is your own life. Because we expect death, we expect destruction, we at least expect some injuries, yes? So, thankfully, we're over here in the United States, and no bombs are going off around us at the moment. But there might be a few fears in this country as this war is going on. What do you think common concerns would be when we're at war with a country in the Middle East? What do you think is the most common shortage that we end up with? Gas. Yeah. And our typical gas pump jumped up 50 cents a gallon right away. Did you notice that? Yeah, so a typical response besides those prices going up is that the stock market dropped, right? And because gas is so expensive, it could be that as time goes by, it's going to become difficult for people to travel or even get to work if they need to. So we tend to pull in. We tend to become stingy. We tend to hoard our good, yes? And we keep our eyes glued on what the news is saying about what's happening and expect it to continue to get worse. That's very common when we're in such a state. So one of the tools that I want us to look at that we mention here regularly, we talked about on Tuesday night, was our divine substance. When shortage threatens, your divine resource is substance, that spiritual energy that stands at the foundation of all that is and never runs out. It's infinite in nature. It's the essence of God. It's the clay that we use to mold whatever it is we want to create in our life. It's the clay that molded trees and planets. So something that John Randolph said, and we talked about this in our class, was that substance flowing through a consciousness of substance reads your needs as it passes through your mind and literally becomes the needed thing. A spiritual mind always operates on the basis of absolute certainty. Sounds like security, doesn't it? Yes? Okay, so let me go back and explain this a little bit because his language is deep. When our mind is settled in knowing that we live in a universe of infinite substance that is the very source of all of our good and is available to everyone, when we know that, the next thing that happens is the essence of substance is everywhere, including passing through our consciousness, picking up on our heart's desires, and helping to multiply that in our life to become manifest. It reads, in this person's point of view, that there's enough because I know that God is my source. And so it comes in and agrees with you, and it produces that heart's desire in some way, shape, or form. But if our mind is bent on looking for the material world to provide our good for us, and substance passes through, it sees limitation, it sees temporary, it sees lack, it sees a possibility of failure. That's what we become in essence and in consciousness when we put all of our faith in the material world. When we look at our salaries, when we look at how our government is doing compared to its budget, when we look at what the stock market is doing, if we say that the only way that that will rise is if somebody cracks open their wallet, you're working from a material point of view. And when that happens and substance passes through, it picks up on your belief in not enough, and then the manifestation comes much more slowly and maybe not at all. Substance and a consciousness of substance are both needed. Substance is a given. A consciousness of substance is our job. If we want security, we get to start learning how to be aware of that presence, what it does, what it's for, and that it's available to us all the time. One of the things Alan Cohen said was, every thought you have falls into one of two streams of energy, enough or not enough. The more you observe and affirm enough, the more enough you have. The more you observe and affirm not enough, the more not enough you have. Sound familiar? Okay, so another one of our tools here is our thoughts. How we choose to see the world, how we choose to see what's happening around us in spirit, how we choose to think enough. Did we not talk about choices here this morning? Are we choosing that there is enough no matter what we're seeing with our eyes? Security comes through substance and a consciousness of substance, which is a thought that we choose, okay? Let's look at tree number 2 here. This tree trunk says strength. Strength is something that's probably a focus in war with a belief that the stronger one wins, right? So, of course, the country that has the most soldiers and weapons and money are the ones that are going to win this war, yes? That's a common way to look at strength. And that's not what it says here on the tree. The tree talks about strength as just putting one foot in front of the other. I love this concept. Together we rise. Together we rise. Not a fight against each other, but together we rise. In one breath, peace through love is strength. This is when we're choosing to look through spiritual eyes. So again, Alan Cohen says the most powerful way to achieve a goal is to fixate on what you want to create. Look at a mistake just long enough to recognize it and stimulate your desire for what you want instead, and then turn your full attention to where you are headed. So strength, in this particular case, is continually making the choice for God. And this is something that or a way that we would describe strength when we're talking about our 12 spiritual powers. Did you know that was one of our powers? So typically, when we're in conflict, we use our strength to fight back. We use our strength to holler as loud as we can and as long as we can about why we should fight and what's going wrong and what's being taken from us and how we're going to get it back and protect everything that's mine. But if we look at what Alan Cohen said, he said, just notice that problem for a minute, just long enough to go, what would I prefer instead? Okay? Instead of stoking the fire and telling everyone that you know about it, stay focused on your desire and keep focusing. That is really where your spiritual strength is applied, to keep focusing on spirit. Christian Sundberg said that what beliefs and intentions are you sponsoring within the collective consciousness? Recognize your power. For one person who's fully present and acting from a place of responsibility and genuine love can make a huge difference and inspire many others to do the same. That's huge. We think, who's me? I'm just one person. How many times have we heard that? I'm just one person. But this is our opportunity to take responsibility. Do you think you need strength for that? Oh, yeah. Take responsibility for your thoughts and feelings, for where you're putting your attention, and choose to look at that which you want to create instead of that which you wish would go away. That's our power of strength here. And I know that responsibility is a word that we tend to run away from, but it only takes one to put that stone in the pond and create that ripple that everyone will experience at a subconscious level. That's the one collective consciousness that we all share. We're constantly getting input from every human being on the planet. The question is, does the majority win? Yes, usually. So help change the majority, because when you are a majority of one, even if your one is with God, that's enough. Keep that in mind. There's going to come a tipping point if you use your strength and stay focused on what it is that your heart desires. And it can't be, I want to win and I want them to lose. Okay? Look at our third tree here. The tree trunk on this one is connection. One of the ways that they're working towards connection is reaching out, smiling, being centered. I see you now. Love, energy, sharing, and we're all stardust. Love that. That's how we're connected. Just like in substance. It's everywhere present. We're everywhere present because we are of spirit and an expression of God. Now, I know it's hard to imagine connection when you're fighting with someone. That's really kind of the last thing that you want to do. So, typically, when a war breaks out, we separate ourselves. Did you notice all the Americans came home from the Middle East after word got out? Then they create a no man's land. Don't cross here. No one's allowed in this area. When we're in conflict with family, we just don't show up at Christmas dinner. Yes? We avoid talking to them as much as possible. And we hate hearing when they win, when they get something good and we're not getting our good, or they're depriving us from our good. But Esther Hicks said, you're never deprived when someone else gains, because abundance expands proportionately to match desires. When the success of another, take a breath, makes your heart sing, your resistance is gone and your own success soars. When I hear something like this, I always think of when my parents were still alive and I'd drive down to see them in Peoria. At dinner time, we'd all eat on TV trays and we would watch Wheel of Fortune. And, you know, you always want them to win big money, right? They are all saying, big money, big money, as they spin the wheel. And sometimes they do win really big money. And I noticed for a while how it's like, how come somebody else always gets the big money and I never get the big money? Until I realized that holding that consciousness says there's only enough for them. Right? Until I can get to the point where I celebrate everyone who wins, I'm going to be on the end of the vibration that says there's not enough. And since I'm holding the consciousness, guess who's the one that draws the short straw? There's not enough. So we're talking about, even though it sounds impossible, opening your heart to celebrate all beings, no matter how they are living. And I'm not talking about murder. I'm not talking about hurting one another. But I'm talking about, as Jesus said, love your enemies. He knew it was hard, but he said, love your enemies. What happens when you love an enemy? Well, gosh, if you're loving them, then they must not be an enemy. Do you see that? When you truly are loving them, they are no longer an enemy. And that changes the frequency between the two of you. That's when walls can come down. That's when we can connect. Jesus said, do good to those who hate you. If we're in this framework that says, but if I give my good to them, who I hate, and they hate me, there won't be enough for me. Or I could love that enemy and do good, and now I'm in a frequency of good, and now good is everywhere. That's how it works. This is the way that the energy of the universe responds to us as we are being ourselves. Connect in a way that you want to feel good about in your own life, and see if you can't create that for someone else. Also, think of connecting with people who think like you, but just be really conscious of it in such a way. Let me show you what Ernest Holmes would say. When a group of people come together with one accord and with one thought, a greater power is generated, because the combined faith of a group reaches a higher level of acceptance. The best results are gained when all members focus not on acquiring a specific good, but for the purpose of reaching a higher state of consciousness. Now, that's unusual. Usually, if you're going to get together and you want to pray with someone, most of the time it's about healing somebody or filling a need of some kind. Does that sound familiar? What we're talking about here is establishing another, or taking advantage of another tool, which is creating a sense of beingness. Let's be the result that we want to experience without needing to manifest the thing. So in other words, instead of, we want our team to win the Super Bowl, how about, as a group, we simply say, may we be joy now, before the game is even played. May we be peace now, before we know the results. Because if the whole reason that we want to win is to be happy, what if we as a group can choose a happy consciousness now and first and always and all the time? What a wonderful way to connect. We can also lean into tree number 4, which the tree trunk on this one is freedom. See freedom expressing through and as abundant favor, service, trust, gratitude, faith, peace, and love. You know, it's interesting, I've heard more than once that when somebody goes to war, we're fighting for freedom. So just think for a minute. You know, that's our justification to go to war. Say the word war and then say the word freedom to yourself. Are they saying even remotely the same thing? Are their frequencies remotely at the same level? Yeah. Well, we justify it because they're taking my supply, or they're trying to take power over me, and so I must fight to be free from that. Makes logical sense, especially to the ego, yes. So I'm going to resist the rules. I'm going to fight back and get what I need. Fighting for freedom, however, is not a spiritual concept. It makes absolutely no sense in divine mind. Esther Hicks says it this way: most rarely align with their true power because it seems illogical to them that there's power in relaxation, in letting go, in love or joy, or releasing resistance. We want you to breathe rather than try, to relax rather than offer effort, to smile rather than to struggle, to be rather than do. Abundance, and I would say peace, is simply the universe's response to consistent thoughts and feelings of abundance and peace. That's its natural response. And if we want to get those needs met through fighting, that's an option too, but the outcome cannot be guaranteed. Not as long as we're way off the grid when it comes to spiritual frequencies. So think again about this tree of freedom: abundant favor, service, trust, gratitude, faith, peace, and love. These show up when we begin from a consciousness of freedom, and we can actually live these things to create a consciousness of freedom. So there's a beautiful circle here between all of that. Just keep asking yourself, am I in agreement with Spirit to know my freedom? Remember Jesus saying, know the truth, and the truth will set you free. One last thing from Ernest Holmes on this: we're not limited by actual boundaries, but by false ideas about life, and by a failure to recognize that we're dealing with the infinite. We should radiate joy and should be filled with faith, hope, and expectancy. These cheerful, hopeful attitudes of mind are indispensable to the one who really wants to do things in life. Our freedom is inherent when we establish a consciousness of what God already is in us. Already free, already joyful, already peace. Here's our final tree for today. Its trunk says peace. You notice that there's no words on the leaves, and so I contacted the contributor of this tree, and she said that what peace meant to her was a high energy vibration. Not the kind of peace that you get from the world. It's a peace where you find your answers. It's a peace that passes all understanding. It's a calm, alert, transforming mind. She said, it's where I want to be. Inherent in peace is what you see as light bands surrounding the tree. Think of those as more substance expressing as light, which holds peace together, which we become that light when we are at peace. So typically, you don't see peace when you're focused on conflict. Again, an oxymoron. Instead, we focus on what's missing. And when we focus on what's missing, we move into or try and get to our peace through fear and through aggression and through separation, which, once again, totally different frequencies. We're ships passing in the night with our spiritual good. So Esther Hicks says again, you cannot be in a steady feeling of poverty and allow abundance. Those two vibrations don't go together. You have to feel the way you want to live. When we are in conflict, there is a sense of poverty there. And that sense of poverty is focused on what I need, what I want, is missing at this moment. But when we are able to move into a state of abundance, which means acknowledging your source of abundance, remembering and realizing it's right here with you, that's when you move into a state of my good is flowing. So in the same way, skip the word poverty, but when you're feeling uncertain, when you're feeling afraid of the state of the world around you, that feeling is basically working from a consciousness of my peace is missing. Or we could realize that the heart of God is right here within us, that it's the only power working in our life, and its power is good and its power is for us. That's when we can say, my peace is flowing. John Randolph Price, I'll finish with his quote here. You must have the consciousness for the thing desired. That is so powerful, and I know I've said it in other ways today. You must have the consciousness for the thing desired. So when you're facing conflict of some kind and you desire peace, you must have the awareness, the belief, the sensation, the feeling, the gratitude, the essence of peace in your being. Remember in class we talked about rock solid conviction, which is not an easy thing to get to. You know when you're not in rock solid conviction, if when you're up against something and peace would really solve everything, you're not able to get there. So, this is our chance to turn towards that all good that's just waiting for us, just waiting for a choice, and practice that choice. So, here's what typically happens between you, a spirit, and you, a human. You just listen to this message and you're all hyped up on it, and you're probably saying something, from your spirit's influence that would say, all of my good begins in spirit. That feels good, doesn't it? All of my good begins in spirit. And therefore, my good is always present. And therefore, I always have enough good. That feels really good, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Okay, thank you. Here's your ego. So where is it, kitty? And spirit says, it's right here. It's in spirit. But I'm a human, says the ego. But you're also spirit, and technically, ego's going to go away someday, which terrifies the ego. So be nice to the ego. Just pat it on the shoulder. I understand, kitty. I understand. Just take a breath. Remember the truth of who you are. You are over and above any of these circumstances as spirit. Well, why am I not experiencing it? You have free will. You're making a choice. You're either focused on what you desire or what you don't want. And that choice is only and always up to you. You've been given enough information today to know you have the spiritual resources needed to turn anything into a physical experience. Always. Infinitely. Whatever you need is available. Will you choose that? Will you move into a consciousness of that? And here's what I think is interesting about this. When you just start your day in peace, I know that's not something we normally get up out of bed and go, peace. But if you could just take a breath and remember, let this be my breath of peace to start this day. If we could go there and we have that rock solid conviction, don't get out of bed till you're at a state of peace. That peace, up here on the screen, we've got a little diagram for you. That peace is actually going to take you to a sense of freedom. Sound familiar? So we're starting at the end and we're working our way back to the beginning. Peace is going to take us to freedom. And freedom, when you establish yourself in that freedom of nothing and no one can keep you from your good, when you know that, then you move to connection because you know it's safe to connect. That whoever I'm in connection with cannot keep me from my good because God is my only source and God is the only power. And when we feel connected to one another, that's when we move into strength. Because we know there's only one of us here. And when we're established in that strength and we're able to keep choosing for the whole, for the one, now we've got security. We feel balanced. We feel grounded. We know we have all that we need. Doesn't that feel good? Let's take this into meditation and see if we can't just enjoy this a little bit. I'll just invite you to close your eyes. And let your body relax. Imagine a peaceful flow pouring in from the top of your head, down through your body, your legs, your feet, soothing and calming all that you are. Breathe in peace. Release tension. I am in a peaceful presence. Soothing and calming my every cell of my body. A peaceful mind. Soothing and calming my every thought. I am at peace. As I know this peace, I know my freedom. In peace, there is nothing working against me. I am free to be my true self. I am free to choose my highest thoughts. I am free to live my dreams. Within this power and presence of peace. And as my thoughts and my energy stretch outward to create and expand, I feel my connection to all life. I see in all beings the one presence. Relaxed in knowing that the one heart beats in each of us in all things. We are connected. In this connection, I stand in our strength. A strength that turns to spirit again and again. A strength that looks past the material. Into the divine source of good that I am always connected with. I look to the Spirit that is all the strength I need. And as I know this strength, I find my security, a sense of enough. Take a moment now to breathe in the feeling of relief. and breathe in a feeling of gratitude. I am secure. I am strong. I am connected. I am free. I am peace. This is the truth of my being. This is the truth of all beings. May I choose to know that truth, not just for myself, but for the world. That together we are secure. That in our oneness we are strong. That through our heart we are connected. That we can celebrate freedom for all. That we all may know peace. This is the truth we know, and now we let it be. And so it is. Amen.